In 2012, Metro Trains Melbourne was faced with a serious problem. Young people were acting irresponsibly around Melbourne train lines and were often paying the price through injury and even death. Furthermore, despite these accidents, the issue of rail safety was barely registering as a social concern within this demographic. McCann was hired to design a campaign that would change the behaviour of Melbourne's apathetic young adults by cutting through the myriad of regular public service announcements with a message that the target audience actually wanted to listen to. And so the PSA campaign juggernaut Dumb Ways to Die was born.
Young people don't listen to public safety messages. So how do you get them to care about being safe around trains? By turning your message into a cultural phenomenon. The idea was simple. Being unsafe around trains is the dumbest thing you could ever do.
Stand on the edge of the train station platform. Drive around the boom, gets at a level crossing. Run across the tracks between the platforms.
To tell people this, we created a new act, Tangerine Kitty, comprised of members from two of Australia's best groups, the Cat Empire and Tin Pan Orange. They then released the song, Dumb Ways to Die. Within a week, the song's music video had over 20 million YouTube views and was shared more times online than another song that was released on the same day, Rihanna's Diamonds. The song was released on iTunes and quickly climbed the charts in over 20 countries, making its way onto playlists all around the world. Radio stations everywhere played it, not as an advertisement, but as part of their music programming. We even released a karaoke version of the song, which people used to create their own versions.
Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die.
Within 6 weeks, Dumb Ways to Die became the most shared public service campaign in history. And a message that people needed to hear had become a message that people wanted to hear.
Dumbest ways to die. Dumbest ways to die. Dumbest ways to die. So many dumb ways to die.
Be safe around trains, a message from Metro.
The campaign's creative merit was undeniable, winning international acclaim for its innovative use of communication platforms, and the staggering degree of exposure and level of international engagement was also commendable and unprecedented for a locally based campaign. However, Dumb Ways to Die also drew its critics, sparking an industry-wide debate that was predominantly centred on the campaign's value as a behavioural change campaign, generating some intriguing points. Firstly, how do you measure behaviour change? A lot of the criticism surrounding Dumb Ways to Die was levelled at its measures of virality to quantify the campaign's success, such as views, likes, shares, downloads and media placements. This has been an industry hot topic, as calls for accountability force practitioners to look for hard data to prove a campaign's success. Nevertheless, such metrics don't measure any behavioural impact of the campaign, and merely describe the campaign's tactical output and outtakes, which according to Smith would be better used to measure awareness objectives. Smith suggests that an appropriate metric for a behavioural campaign would include the achievement of the desired results, a statistical improvement, or organisational and environmental change. Using communication effects theory, however, couldn't it be argued that awareness is the first step towards persuasion and is needed to lead publics through to acceptance and on to the desired action? And wouldn't it make sense to aim for exposure before attempting to change attitudes and behaviours? As behavioural effects are long-term objectives, how would you prove that a public's progression through these steps could be attributed to a campaign and not an extraneous variable? A second point arising from the debate was whether behaviour change was Metro's true campaign goal at all. Criticism was in this case directed at the campaign's broad focus. As Dumb Ways to Die was designed to affect behavioural change in young adults, it's interesting to note that none of Metro's objectives specifically mention this target public. In fact, a large part of the strategy seemed to be focused on pushing creative boundaries and going viral, with half of the objectives centering on awareness and creating buzz. Was the task-based goal of affecting behaviour change a disguise for the campaign's true purpose, a more reputation-based goal? This would fit with Metro's situational analysis, as the organisation was voted the worst Australian train line in 2011. McCann tried to justify the viral strategy with diffusion of innovation theory, arguing that virality would cause a two-step process where the message could reach influential opinion leaders who would then influence the true target of communication. This is particularly effective for young adults who look to reference groups and peers to guide their opinions and actions. If this was the case, the campaign's objective should have been more specific about the opinion leaders or platforms it was targeting to provide boundaries for measurability. In fact, it could be argued that McCann itself would have had more to gain from a highly visible viral campaign, which raises interesting questions around the client-agency relationship. Were McCann's own desires for critical acclaim outweighing their duty to achieve their clients' goals? And what ethical considerations does this generate? Further, if Metro were focused on rebuilding their reputation with a PSA campaign, what does this say about using corporate social responsibility as simply a means to an end? The last point we will cover is whether behaviour change was an achievable campaign goal at all. This is a typical struggle for public service announcements. Most organisations do not have the resources such as time, money, or expertise to conduct the types of long-term qualitative and quantitative research required to show a behavioural effect. In fact, even organisations who do have access to these resources, such as those studying long-term PSA topics, including smoking cessation and speeding discouragement, have not conclusively been able to prove that their campaigns can cause a behavioural change. McCann admitted in its award submissions that they were limited by their minimal budget of $300,000 and could not provide benchmark data for analysis. Without a starting point for measurement, it would be impossible to prove the campaign had caused any degree of social change, let alone a change of behaviour. And yet, all hope is not lost for Metro and McCann, as revenue generated from the original campaign has been funded into an ongoing program with a slight change of target public: school children. With ongoing funding from initiatives such as games, toys, books, and school-integrated educational programs, Metro has a chance to fund a longitudinal study of whether their engaging approach actually affects attitudes and reduces unsafe behaviours in the long run. Which begs the question, if this program successfully affects the behaviour of future young adults, could it be argued that the original campaign was effective in reaching its goal?
Overexposure to a really catchy song can melt your fragile eardrums or lead to lethal insomnia. Can't wait to die even dumber.
A message from a sleep-deprived uni student.